What is up, Giants fans? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Tommy's Takes. I'm your host, Tommy G. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. Unfortunately, the Giants go down to the Seattle Seahawks 27-13. Tough game, turnovers, mistakes, raunchy crowd. I'm going to break down what happened, what went wrong, and what needs to go right coming out of the bye week. The Giants fall today to the Seahawks, 27-13. Tough loss for the G-men. Let's be honest. They've been walking the tightrope, high wire act the entire season. Today was no different. They're down in the second half. They tie it up 13-13. Unfortunately, when you play the tightrope act, comes to get you sometimes. And when you have colossal blunders like the Giants had today, and let's be honest, Giants beat themselves this afternoon. Credit to the Seahawks. The Seahawks did a really good job today. They did an excellent job containing the Giants' run. They did a really good job shutting down the RPO, play action, bootlegs, the bread and butter of this Giants offense so far this season. Not having Neal and Bellinger really played a huge role. You could see that on the right side of the line today. You had a couple of false starts. You had a sack given up right towards the end. And it was tough. It was tough out there for Daniel Jones in this offense. Darius Slayton had a really good day. Shout out to Darius Slayton. He's taking a lot of heat. But at the end of the day, when you play such tight games and you can't make space between you and your opponents, and you play a solid team like Seattle on the road, and Seattle's such a tough place to play. I mean, look at the penalties today for the New York Giants. Look at the struggles of trying to get the play in. There were a couple of plays where the left side of the line didn't even get up when the ball was hiked. They had like a 1 second delay. Seattle has always been a tremendously tough place to play. Today was no different, unfortunately, for the Giants. And this is the thing. When you have injuries and you personify next man up, that goes on coaching. That goes on training, teaching, weight room, locker room. That goes on the GM finding the right players for the system that can step up at a minute's notice. But there's going to be times where it doesn't work out. And today was one of those days. Giants' winning streak comes to a close, unfortunately. They lose to a tough Seattle team. Like I said, tough environment. There were a lot of mistakes made. This was probably one of the first games this season where the Giants have really beat themselves. And they did. They beat themselves multiple times. They had several timely penalties. They had I still haven't seen an actual real replay of this call. It was an unnecessary roughness, a blindside hit that wiped out a 30-plus yard punt return. Still haven't seen the replay where I actually have seen the penalty. That was a tough one, especially when your offense is struggling the way it struggled, and you can get the ball at midfield. And think about this, too. The Giants got the fumble by Tyler Lockett on their own 2-yard line. Imagine that play doesn't happen. The Giants only scored 13 points this afternoon, which is not going to cut it. But really, what do you expect? You're missing your top 3 receivers. You're missing your right tackle. You're missing your tight end. You're moving guys around. You're switching places. There was a deep, I would say mid-range pass by Jones that was missed down the right sideline to another practice squad receiver. And that's unison, that's moving together, that's having a rhythm, that's having working towards having that flow together, and it's not there. And when it's not there, and the NFL is a game of inches, and when you have such a minute area of to make mistakes and such a small margin for error, you can't have that. And that's what you've seen today. You've seen the injuries starting to pile up. You've seen people not in the right places. You're seeing, had a couple drops today. The penalties, again, were huge. You had a face mask. You had a drive for Seattle where they had multiple third downs, fourth down conversions. It was really one of those games where the Giants have avoided so far this year. They didn't avoid it today, unfortunately. And Giants fall to 6-2. But listen, let me stop for a second. The New York Giants are 6-2 at the break. 6-2 at the break. If anyone would have told any of us that in August, after the blue-white scrimmage, when everyone was like, okay, Giants are picking top 5 again, everybody would have been like, whoa, I'll take that 6-2 in a heartbeat. So take a deep breath. It's a tough loss, especially when the Giants tie it up at 13 in the second half, and you're saying, okay, here we go again. We're a second half team. This is how we move. But unfortunately, going down to the wire leaves you with no margin for error, and that's what happened. And once they pulled even at 13, it was pretty much over after that. Richie James. Let's talk about Richie James for a second and why this is complicated. So Richie James fumbles twice today. He had a fumble earlier in the season. All 3 fumbles lost. He has also had a propensity to not field the ball cleanly when he catches a punt return, which is tough because, again, punt returns, you have very small margin for error. These gunners are coming down the field 100 miles per hour, split decision thinking, and he gets the fumble. It was unfortunate. The Giants started getting some pressure. They get their 3rd sack on Geno Smith. Xavier McKinney comes in unblocked. Boom, blows it up. 4th and long, time to punt. And they punted and Richie James fumbles it. And that was really one of those plays where it sucked the life out of the team. And you got to think, when again, you're playing with injuries and you're playing on the road and you're playing versus a team that's over 500 and you're missing all these key components of the team, you cannot have 2 lost fumbles. That cannot happen on this Giants team, especially a team that's building towards something, a team that's starting to grow, a team that's starting to develop chemistry, take on the likeness of their coach and their GM. You cannot give a football game away on the road like that with 2 lost fumble returns. And when he fumbled the first one, and these were colossal blunders, let's be honest. Neither one of those fumbles were big hits on him. The second fumble, Richie James doesn't even bother to cover up the football in traffic while getting hit. And then he gets hurt, he gets carted off, but the damage was already done. And probably not going to see him back there again. I'd be surprised if the Giants put him back there again after that because that was just brutal. And you could see when he was getting carted off, I'm sure he was injured. I would never question a player's injury. I'm sure he was. But you could see he was disappointed. He was upset. And I don't blame him because that was colossal. Even the second fumble, you're down 20-13. It's the 4th quarter. You're going to get the ball back with about 6-7 minutes and change. The quarterback for the Giants, Daniel Jones, has been hot in the second half of football games, especially in the 4th quarter. Giants came into the game with the 2nd best point differential in the 4th quarter. So you're going to get the ball back. All you have to do is field the punt cleanly. Shoot, go for a fair catch, whatever you need to do. Do not fumble that football. Give your quarterback and your MVP caliber running back a chance to drive that ball downfield, and he didn't. And he lost that game for the Giants, among other things. He didn't lose it solely, but losing 2 fumbles like that in your own territory, very hard for a team to overcome that, especially a team that struggled on offense pretty much the entire year. They have picked it up lately, but that's tough to overcome. And you had penalties, you had a couple of false starts in timely moments. So let's go to the start of the game. The first surprise was Lockett and DK Metcalf being active. I thought one of them would be active. I knew one of them would be active. I didn't think both would be active. They both played huge roles in this game. Lockett had a struggle. Lockett had the fumble on the 2-yard line. He also dropped, which would have been a touchdown, about a 30-yard touchdown. He did score later in the second half. DK Metcalf was difficult to stop today. He had a bunch of catches. He did his thing, got a couple of big first downs. And it started right away. And this is beginning to be an issue for this Giants team. And I'm going to break it down like this. It depends on how you look at this team. If you look at this team like, hey, they're rebuilding, this is house money, whatever happens, happens. We'll take all the positives. This next season we're going to have a bunch of free agent money. We'll probably have a decent draft pick. Joe Shane's going to get a full year, 365 to really build this team. This is house money. Or do you look at it like, this team is 6-1 coming in. The NFC's wide open. It's a tough NFC East. You got the Cowboys winning today, Eagles winning today. But can you make a run? Can this team make a run? Do you give up a chance to make a run and say, hey, the Giants traded Tony. We're out of this thing. We're focused on next year and beyond. We have a 3-5 year plan. This is what we're going to do. So there's 2 ways to look at it. If you look at it from the perspective of they should make a run. We're in a chance to make a run here. We're right on the cusp. We could be a wild card team. you got to look at this team starting slow in games because it's become a real problem now. And it's basically become their identity. They've been able to save it with second half comebacks, which is awesome. I've said it on the show before. If you wanted to pick between two halves of your team being that type of team, you want a second half team. But again, uneventful first quarter. Giants decide to come out in a passing strategy, similar to what they did against Chicago. Didn't work then, didn't work today. I'm a firm believer in this passing offense is just not ready yet to carry this football team. They've had some drives this season where they have done that, but coming out to start games that way, there's a saying, dance with who brung you. And that means what's working, you continue it. Listen, the Seahawks today did basically what the Giants did. They said, you know what? We're a good running team, but we're going to come out passing. And it worked. But the Seahawks also have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, two number one receivers, essentially. You could do that when you have two number one receivers. But when you're trouting out there, Kenny Sills and Darius Slayton, who had a big game today. Shout out to Darius Slayton. I've been hard on Darius Slayton. Shout out to him. He had a really big game today. He had a couple contested balls he came down with. Shout out to him. You have Wan'Dale Robinson, who's a rookie, who's played less than a handful of games. That's tough to go out and say, hey, guys, we're going to go out and we're going to pass every play. And I think the Giants had like one rushing attempt in the first quarter. That's just not acceptable. And I think this was the first tough game plan by Mike Kafka that I've seen. I didn't like the game plan, I'll be honest. I thought they should have ran the ball more. And listen, I get it. You lost Daniel Bellinger. He was that security blanket for Daniel Jones. You lost Evan Neal, your starting right tackle. That does limit what you can do. But dropping back to pass every play when you have receivers like that is going to lead to issues, and it's a miracle that the Giants were able to stay in this game. You had we'll say 3 key mistakes the Giants had in the first half. You had the phantom unnecessary roughness, blindside hit on sportsmanlike, whatever it was. I still haven't seen it. You had a false start that hurt a drive on third down, and then you had which was interesting to me at the end of the first half, the Giants get the ball back with a minute and some change, and it seems like they don't know what they want to do. And I fully understand that a lot of times those type of drives, 2-minute drills, are predicated on each play. So if you get 1 yard on the first down, most likely you're going to run the ball, kneel it out, and go to the locker room. Where if you get 8 or 9 yards, you're going to say, okay, let's be aggressive. But they were stuck somewhere in the middle, and not only did they not get anything going, punted the ball back to Seattle with 20 seconds left. It was really interesting play calling. You could tell Kafka still doesn't trust parts of this Giants offense. That was evident. You also had, where was it? You also had, there was a play in the first quarter where Barkley, and Barkley's having a great season. This is not a knock on Barkley, but you're starting to see a little bit where the dancing's coming back from with him. And I don't know where it's coming back from or why it's coming back. He did it a couple times last week, ended in a loss. He did it one time today, ended in a loss of yardage. And, you don't want to revert back to some of these mistakes that you've had in the previous years. And he's been having he as the Giants go, Barkley goes. And I don't want to be super negative because of a loss. But when you win, it's kind of like that good deodorant that covers up the smell, right? You didn't shower, but you put some good deodorant on, right? That's how it is. But when you lose, you start to say, okay, let's check this play. Let's look at this play. Let's see where it developed. Let's see where it broke down. And this team starting slow has been a problem. It was 0-0 after the first quarter. Seattle would put together a long grinding drive to start the second quarter. That was the difficult drive. They got 2 fourth down conversions. 3rd and 14 conversion. There was a 3rd and 10 converted on another penalty. And the Giants just continue to struggle early. And the Seahawks get up in the game. They're up 7-0. And you're looking at this game in the first half saying, okay, this is nothing new. This is familiar territory. We've been here before. And Giants did represent. They got the fumble by Adoree. Barkley scores on a 1-yard touchdown. And I want to give a shout out to on that play, Nick Gates having the ceiling block on that 1-yard touchdown run by Saquon Barkley. That was awesome to see. Again, shout out to Nick Gates. Great comeback. He was in there today mixing it up. He was scrapping it up a little bit in the fourth quarter. That was awesome to see. So you get the fumble. Barkley scores. Tie game. You're back into it. But you still have that feeling of The offense didn't really do it there. That was the defense. That was a 2-yard drive by the offense, right? Then you get the sack on Seattle. You get the ball back. You get the fumble. What happens after that? Seahawks score on a field goal, which is interesting because Dexter Lawrence actually blocks the field goal, tips the field goal, and it just made it in. If that field goal was 2 yards further back, that field goal is missing. So that's kind of how the Giants' afternoon went. And it was remarkable at the end of the first half when you're looking at some of the stats. Giants had 46 total yards of offense and a handful of mistakes, face masks, 2 false starts, penalty after penalty, punt return, fumble. It was the fewest yards in a half by a Giants football team in 5 years. So that shows you how tough of a half it was for the Giants offense. And listen, did Daniel Jones play his cleanest game of the year? No, he had a couple missed passes here and there. But this is the thing. When you bring in practice squad players, when you bring in players that are not used to cadence, are not used to playing in front of 50,000 screaming fans, you're going to have issues, and you're going to have timing issues, unfortunately. And there were timing issues today. And it was tough because Daniel Jones, has been working towards his progress, has been playing well, and that first half was not good for anybody. He still fought to the very end. Even with, I believe it was like 3 minutes left, he led the Giants down there. Unfortunately, didn't come away with any points, but they kept fighting. But you could see every time Daniel Jones drops back and he hits his last step, nothing there. And he's patting the ball and he's moving around out of the pocket. He's manipulating the pocket. He's scrambling. There's just nobody open. And it's tough to watch because, this team has a unique opportunity at 6-2 to make a move and to continue to build on this progress. As the second half starts tonight, you start to think, here we go. They put together a 14-play, 81-yard drive, couple nice catches by Slayton, couple nice runs by Barkley. But unfortunately, Giants had to settle for a field goal. And that was tough because you get the ball all the way down there, you have this great drive, and then boom, no touchdown, settle for 3. What happens? Seahawks come right back with a nice drive of their own. Kenneth Walker got loose on a couple plays. That was the drive. Lockett dropped a touchdown, so Seattle had to settle for a field goal. And really, honestly, after the Giants tied it, they had a 45-yard field goal. They tied it with 11 minutes and 17 seconds left in the fourth. That was it. The Seahawks got the ball back. Geno Smith, hats off to Geno Smith. He was awesome today. He leads a masterful drive. He goes 5 for 5, 75 yards, 33-yard touchdown pass to Lockett. And this was an issue I had on that last Seahawks touchdown drive. Wink Martindale decided to not blitz at all, which is interesting because in the first half, blitzes were hitting home. You had the big sack by McKinney. You had a couple sacks in the first half, 3 to be exact. And on that last drive where it was critical for a stop, Wink said, hey, we're going to drop back. We're going to be in dime. We're going to be in quarters. We're not going to blitz. And Geno Smith just eviscerated the Giants' defense. I don't think there was even a second down on that drive. It was boom, 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 pitch and catch, pitch and catch, pitch and catch. And that was it. That was the game. Giants did have a couple more drives to put together, but nothing there. And the second half did look like the Giants were going to come back. They controlled the ball until that final Seahawks touchdown drive. The Giants were 5-0 coming in, trailing into the fourth quarter coming into this game. And today was not to be. It really wasn't. And Giants now 6-2. Bye week is finally here. Couldn't have come at a better time. This team is hurting. I'm not sure how much a week will help as far as getting some players back. Like Evan Neal is going to still be out. Daniel Bellinger is still going to be out, unfortunately. Maybe Galladay gets back. Not sure. Ben Bredeson was put on the IR, so he's going to miss 4 games. But you're still in a position you want to be in. You're 6-2. You're going into the bye. You have a couple favorable games coming up soon. And nobody thought you would be here. And you have the Texans and the Lions coming up. So those are 2 winnable games for the Giants. And you could possibly be looking at the Giants at 8-2 heading into that crucial NFC East stretch where they play Dallas, Washington, Philly, and then Washington again. 4 straight games. So all in all, tough loss. not easy to take. The instant thoughts are always difficult because you think woulda, coulda, shoulda. What happens if Richie James doesn't fumble 2 punts, right? What happens if they don't call that phantom, blindside hit on the Giants punt return? What happens? Doesn't matter at this point. You take the loss, you build from it. As a coaching staff, a young coaching staff, a new coaching staff. Again, think about it. Right now we have a GM who's the first time in his position. We have a head coach who's the first time in his position. Offensive coordinator, first time in his position. There's going to be growing pains. I think today were those growing pains. I think they were magnified by the injuries, magnified by the crowd noise. The crowd was absolutely insane in Seattle. But still, you did see some positives. Darius Slayton continues to play well. He was someone that, almost the anti-Tony. He took a pay cut at the beginning of the season. He wanted to stay a Giant, never complained, never said anything negative, said, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do my job, I'm going to see how I can get this done. And he's been getting it done, and he was really, the only Giant today, other than, Barkley and Jones, of course, to put up some yards and to make some moves out there and, to get drives going. And the team struggled to get drives going in the first half. And, to double back to that, the start and slow is going to have to fix itself. If this team wants to make a run, and I think we'll get kind of a barometer on if they want to make a run this week with the trade deadline coming up. If the Giants don't trade for anyone or adversely trade off more pieces, then they're sticking within their plan, whether it's a 3-year, 5-year plan. But if they go get a Brandon Cooks, if they go get a Jerry Jeudy, which if you watch the game in detail versus Seattle, this team needs a wide receiver 1 desperately. Probably maybe even a wide receiver 2. Right now, the best receiver on the team is Darius Slayton. And that's no knock to him because he's playing his tail off. He's making plays out there. But you didn't come into this season assuming Darius Slayton's going to be the number 1 receiver. So it should be very interesting to see if the Giants make a play to get one of these receivers. They have been linked to Brandon Cooks, which is interesting. All the receivers played today. Nobody was held out of the games for anything precautionary, so there's no, heads up on that. And you just got to get healthy. Right now the Giants are missing starting right tackle, tight end, 3 receivers. They're missing their starting right guard. They're missing... you can go down the list even from before the season started. They lost McKeithen, they lost Beavers. It's been brutal. So if you're the Giants, you're happy where you're at. There's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on. Yes, you're a second half team. That's awesome. But start some of these games faster. Get up in the game. Get up 7-0, 14-0. So you could run the football more effectively. So the other team has to throw the ball, and your pass rushers could pin their ears back. And that's the tough part. You can't, as a pass rush, it's hard to ever pin your ears back when it's always a 3-point game, and the running play is always in the mix. So I think that's starting fast has to be a focus of this coaching staff going into the break. Imagine where this Giants team would be if they could start fast. They would have definitely won the Dallas game, and they probably win today. But you nip it in the bud. You take your losses where you take them. Looks like they averted serious injury today. I know Leo went down for a point. Nick Williams did get hurt, so there was one pretty big injury. Leo came back in the game. Lick your wounds. Heal up. Go through the positive film. Go through all the positives from this season so far. Build on that because at the end of the day, a loss is a loss, but this team is 6-2. They're in the driver's seat for a wild card. They have 2 favorable games coming up. They have a quarterback that's been improving little by little each game. They have a running back that could go for the MVP. They have a defense that, while they do give up some big plays, they are very opportunistic. Seen that today with the fumble on the 2-yard line by Adoree. The defense is hungry, always seems to get a big stop when they need it. You have a coaching staff that's in tune. You have a head coach that's in tune with the general manager. There is a lot of positives going on for the New York Giants. And one loss in Seattle is not going to change any of that. So, quick recap. Giants go down 27-13 to Seattle. Bye week coming up next week. Chance to rest, lick your wounds. 2 games coming up versus Houston and Detroit. 2 winnable games in my opinion. We'll see. And then you start that stretch. You start that NFC East stretch. That's not going to be easy. And it's 4 straight games of NFC East opponents That's going to decide pretty much what happens in the NFC East. Right now, the Cowboys and the Eagles, pretty much running away with it until those 4 games come. So, Giants, you want to stay close. You want to win these 2 games coming up. You want to go into that stretch 8-2. That's where you want to be, especially if the Eagles are going to be 9-0, 10-0, and Dallas is still only going to have 2 losses. They have pretty favorable schedules. You want to stay in that range. This way you could make a run. But does Joe Shane pick up any pieces? Or does he say, hey, this is a rebuild. We're not giving away any draft picks, any capital. We have cap issues. We're working out. We're going to have cap space next year. It's going to be very interesting to see. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Check out Giants Country, doing some phenomenal things over there. Till next time, peace.